bride, and I am not Selina. This is Eufaula Artalks with Jackie Monies, and there's a few announcements I'd like to make before we start. In that our Eufaula, the children's rainbow play is going to be scheduled to April, May, or June. We're still looking for people to help with that. And so, what else? I'd like to introduce you to Jackie Monies. So let me turn this around. There you go, Jackie. This is Jackie Monies. Hi, Jackie.
I'm smiling under the mask.
I know.
I always smile.
We can take, this is for the reason we start out with our masks, is this is the whole reason we started doing this, is because we were trying to reach people during the pandemic, and we couldn't figure out how to do this. And so we figured we could reach people through these interviews, and we started calling them Eufaula Artalks. So I'm going to go ahead and take mine off so we can see your happy smile.
Oh, thank you. And I'm very much in favor of the mask, Glenn. I have stage 4 cancer, as you know, and I am about as high a risk as you could get. I will never be cured of my cancer. It's in my bones and in my lymph. So I would like to ask everybody out there to please wear a mask when you can, if you can, social distance, because you may be saving someone's life like mine or Glenna's. Glenna's high risk too.
I am high risk.
And I think Linda is our manager here. I think we're all high risk.
I want you all to know I sprayed Jackie's chair with isopropyl alcohol before she sat in it.
And we sprayed my walker.
And we got your walker clean. And so we've had the door open to have a little breeze in here. And this is an interview that'll only last 20 to 25 minutes. Maybe less or maybe a little more. Jackie, I'd like to ask you about how you started in the art world. What turned you on to art?
That's very interesting. I've been thinking about that a lot since I agreed to do the interview. I was born artistic. I think there are people who are born with a gift and it's inexplicable. I was born into a very poor family in the middle of nowhere in the Mississippi Delta on a dirt road. We barely had electricity. You know, we didn't have telephones, we didn't have indoor plumbing. That's hardly the place that you're going to find someone who loves art. And from the time I was born, I was told that I could color, I could paint. My mother said that from the time I could paint any kind of drawings, I could draw almost like an adult. By the time I was, by the time I was 7 or 8, I was drawing my own paper dolls. I drew their own clothes. I've designed clothes my entire life. By the time I was a teenager, I would design my clothes and my mother would sew them for me. I had beautiful clothes, very high style for teen model kind of thing. I went on designing and sewing my own clothes as an adult because I liked having unusual, beautiful clothes. Now I don't sew any longer, but I still, as one of my artist friends says, I paint my body. He said, you are fearless for texture, for mixing colors, for mixing materials. He said, your body is your art form. And I think a lot of people should think of it that way. It makes it a whole lot more fun. But I just was born that way, Glenn. And my mother, no one in our family was artistic. They were all deer hunters and, country rednecks. And, no one had ever been in a museum. In fact, one of my cousins thanked me a few years ago. He said, if you hadn't taken me as a child to museums and to art galleries and to art showings, to plays, to music, he said, I would never have ever been exposed to that. So I think that this is one reason I'm really in favor of art in school. I did take art in school. I did get to go to museums, but when I was very young, most of the art I knew was out of books, but my mom bought the books for me. You know.
Now, you told me you got paid as a young artist. Tell me about how to get paid.
Well, this was interesting because my my first pay was when I was probably about 7 or 8. My late uncle was a very popular dentist, and he bought molds, the same molds that you would mold for ceramics, but he did them in plaster of Paris, which he had plenty of because he made false teeth. And he would make these Easter, Halloween, Christmas molds and paint them and give them to all of his children. But then the adults wanted them, so that expanded, that everyone was wanting these. And he could do things better with his time than paint molds of, Mickey Mouse. And I was there visiting, and he discovered that I could, clean the molds, and then pretty soon he noticed that I could paint the molds. And my mother said that I could paint from very, very early age. So, that's true, because my youngest daughter was just as artistic as I was. I mean, 4 and 5 years old, she could do things like an adult.
I remember you telling me you were a graphic novelist or did some kind of drawing for...
Oh, I've done all kinds of things. When I moved to South America, to Venezuela, with my stepdad and mom, I started a company down there, and I decorated people's Christmas trees for money. I was probably about 10, 11, 12 years old at that time, and I continued that. I'm actually one of the best Christmas tree designers in America. I used to have a 5,000 square foot showroom full of Christmas trees that I redesigned every 6 months. But
and something about Disney and Christmas?
Yeah, that's because I was such a good Christmas designer. I was offered the chance to work as a head Christmas designer for Walt Disney World, but I ended up turning it down and coming to Eufaula instead, which I don't think was a bad decision at all. But as a teenager, I got paid for quite a few things. I entered a competition for the football programs at our high school, and it was all professional adults competing. And I entered and won it, and ended up having to do color separations for all the covers. I had no idea. I knew the rules, so I'd followed them in my design, and they had no idea they were picking I guess I was about 14 at the time. So all the programs, and this was a very big high school, with big budgets and everything. So I was down at the color printers doing the color separations and everything, and having to learn how to do it because they thought they were getting a graphic artist. And those were very professional. They really were. I was very proud of them. But I did cartooning that I got paid for when I got into college. I was a paid cartoonist. Women didn't cartoon in those days. And
this was in Texas?
This was in Louisiana.
Louisiana?
When I was in college in Louisiana. I always wrote for the newspapers. I got my first full-page banner headline when I was 17, when I was a freshman in college. I was very proud of that. They said I was the youngest person to ever get a banner headline at 17, but I had to learn how to do photography, so I did what you call point and shoot photography, for newspapers, and I was an editor on both my collegiate newspapers, but I wrote professionally for other newspapers because I was being paid to work for the school public relations department, and unfortunately my boss had a drinking habit. So I got to be a very, very good, a very good writer. I could even write sports in those days. I could write football, but I learned how to do newspaper photography. I've designed and written for magazines and done color layouts of, my own articles, because after I got in the floral industry, I entered the floral industry after I retired the first time. And I entered the floral industry in the early 80s, and I didn't get out of it until probably about 9 or 10 years ago. But I became a show designer, and I did shows all over America and Mexico. Teach really good floral design is an art form. It's based on the exact rules, the same principles as if I were painting a oil painting. When I entered college, I thought I would be a professional artist. I entered as a art major, and I did take quite a few art courses, but I have applied art in every single thing I have done in my life.
I wish everybody would understand that.
Art is around you. You live it. And this is what I was thinking about. Whatever I did, I needed art. You can't lay out a newspaper. I was a layout specialist, to lay out the articles. You cannot lay out a newspaper without understanding art. You cannot, everything that you see, whether it's a window in your shop, the inside of, like in my shop, I let Lois do it because she loves doing it. I've been doing it for 20 years.
Oh, by the way, when she says her shop, tell us about your shop here on Main Street.
Steals and Deals is a shop that we opened while I was in chemotherapy. I was in right in the middle of the first year of chemotherapy. And I told my partner, Jim, I said, we're going to open a shop here on Main Street, because when I moved here in '96, that was my intention, and I never did it. I worked, but I didn't do it here in town.
That's how most people here know you, is through Steals and Deals.
And I wanted to do something like Steals and Deals in '96. I love small towns. I love little towns like Eufaula. I love main streets. I love the people. Big towns, I've been in big towns. I've played in big towns. I don't like big towns. It's a whole different feeling or vibe. I came to Eufaula by choice. I wanted to be here. My joke is, I told my husband to get on Highway 9 and keep driving, and he would run into the largest lake in America in any single state.
By the way, that is true. I've got pictures of you posted in the sailboat.
And I told him if he wanted to sail and build sailboats, this was where he needed to come. And I had never been here. But I told him, I said, that's where we're going to go, and we're going to find a little cottage, and we're going to restore, and we did. We restored it ourselves. We did almost all the work ourselves. I used art in that. I can tell you, you cannot restore and do a show like, if I were younger, I'd be doing something like Hometown, like the Home and Garden show, with the little houses and restoring them. I love that. And art is everything that you do in life. This is why I think taking art out of the schools, away from the children, is so sad, because
they have to be able to do art to recreate their jobs, to enhance their living.
I think about all the things that I have done. The only thing that I can think of that did not involve art was when I worked for the federal government. There's nothing very artistic about the federal government. And but I went and did hobbies. I found things that I could do. I restored an old home two old homes in New Orleans when I lived there, and down in the Garden District. I would have loved to have had a TV show about restoring homes and decorating. That became a hobby. And almost to the point of professional. But I think if your job does not offer you something, I even learned because my boss was an expert on antiques and auctions. And so on all of our lunch hours, she would drag me along to look at the latest shipments that had come in from England. So I learned about, I learned an awful lot about antiques and furniture and decorating from her, even though that wasn't part of our job. I picked her brain on all that. I loved it. And I think that art in our lives, even if it's cooking, because I like to incorporate beauty in food, and that became a hobby with me to the point where I did it professionally.
That's a good word to use for art, is beauty.
It is beauty. I mean, people don't realize that everything we touch can be beautiful.
Yes.
And it can be made more beautiful. I almost did that for you, and I thought I should do it. If you'll have me back, I promise I'll do it. I was going to go out in my yard and pick weeds because I am a Rhodesiana design expert. That means taking the weeds around you and turning them into beautiful floral arrangements. When my stepfather died, I went out in his yard and I gathered up all these materials from his yard. And when people saw his casket cover, his brother changed his sermon that he was going to preach on, and he preached the sermon on the arrangement. And one of my cousins, who was about 6'7" and really big guy, beard, came up just crying. He said, "I'm so glad you put Johnson grass. Uncle Denver just hated Johnson grass. Thank you for putting it there. I understand." And people, hundreds of people came up to me talking about the casket cover because they understood it was art. It was so high art, I would have put it. I, by the way, am the second best floral designer ever out of the state of Texas. I say that because I have been runner-up for Texas Designer of the Year 5 times.
Oh my goodness!
And I quit doing the competition, not because I didn't think I'd ever win, but because I became a professional salesman. I didn't want to design against my customers, but I have won what they call tabletop designs, which is where you take a big table and you create a story, an art story, with what you put on the table. My best design involved 2,000 roses.
Oh my goodness!
And about 150 artificial snakes. And it was based on a poem from a 17th century poet about the arbor and the serpent slime. And everyone would come up and say, "Oh, it's so beautiful, it's so beautiful." And then they would see all the artificial moccasins, and there were snakes and everything. But what it was an interpretation of this poem. So that was my very favorite tabletop. But I won tabletop. I got to the point no one else could win. No one could win the display. Or last time I was in Las Vegas for a Christmas show, we won 13 first place trophies, and I only lost in one category. I am a good competition designer.
Wow.
And see, that's something no one here has ever seen, because that's why I was at Disney World. They asked me to make an arrangement, and I said, okay. So I went and picked up my stuff. The head person came back and said, "You've got less than $30 worth of material in there." I said, "Yes, that was the rules in all of our design competitions." And she said, "And it's 7 feet tall." And I was on the tabletop, and I said, "Yes, do you want me to break it down and take it apart now?" Because I wasn't going to take the job. And she said, "No, go put it on that desk over there." Now, I happen to know whose desk that was. It was their head designer's desk. And she was being obnoxious. But the point is, there's not very many people that can make a 7 foot tall arrangement
on $30
with $30. And so and I just did that because I knew what they were looking. They were wanting to see what you could do with, and that's how the design competitions are. Most design competitions have a. Now, when I went down to Mexico and judged one of their design competitions, there was no limit to the amount, and so we actually had people. We had over 200 entries in every category, and some of them had as many as 2,000 flowers in their
Ooh, well,
design
that's more
pieces.
than $30.
Yeah. So, but you don't have. It doesn't have to be. Like I said, I can make fabulous designs with the weeds that I would go pick out here. My yard's full of weeds right now, and so I could do a fabulous weed design. But anytime I was doing shows or big design competitions, I used to go out before daylight every morning and scout out neighborhoods looking for berries and things. I once woke an astronaut up at 5 a.m. to cut palm fronds out of his front yard. And he came out, and he was wearing his pajamas, and he said, "Let me go get my saw." And so one of the astronauts was out helping me. He said, "What do you want it for, Jackie?" And I said, "Well, I want it, for my design competition, And I said, "I need a particular one, if you don't mind, if it won't ruin your palm tree." So you can have fun with this,
Well, look, we have an opportunity to show these to students in our school system at lunch. Is there anything you'd like to say to kids who want to do anything in the arts?
Don't let people say being artistic is a wimpy thing, or that it's something, that it's a sissy thing. I mean, if you're a big guy, I have known some fabulous floral design. In fact, one of the best floral designers that I know, if you've ever seen Friday Night Lights, his daddy is the coach in Friday Night Lights. And he himself is way over 6 feet tall, and he was one of the true characters from the football team, And he became a floral designer. His wife is a cordon bleu trained food designer, which is a real art form too. They came from West Texas, from a football small town kind of atmosphere, and where did that come from? His daddy. Oh Lord, I know his daddy too. I mean, that was push it football, live football. How did he find the art form? And I've been in his home, and it's gorgeous, and it's all beautifully, there's beautifully decor, and that was in his heart and soul.
Yes. And don't give up.
Don't give up. I mean, if someone says your life has to go one way or another, don't believe it. Where I was born is the poorest parish or county in the state of Louisiana. It is the poorest, poverty, no anything, no money, no good schools, nothing. And when I went to start my business in Houston, I went to apply for a loan as a woman minority. They had loans for women as minorities. And I sat down, and this man with a Oxford accent, wearing a super expensive 3-piece suit, is sitting opposite me, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I was pretty scared. And he looked at my application, and he said, "Is this where you went to school and where you're from?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I grew up on the plantation next to you." And he said, "We had 20, I said, "Oh my gosh," because,
You knew who he was then.
Well, I didn't know him. We didn't know each other because of race and Jim Crow and all the bad things of that period. But he had come from more poverty than, he said, you were rich compared to me. And he had risen from that poverty and ended up going to England as a Rhodes Scholar. Now that's the kind of and he loved art. He loved art, and we were talking about museums and operas and music. What is the odds of that, Glenna?
Well, it's I think you just follow your heart.
And so
You follow your heart, and you'll never be unhappy with your profession.
You know, I tell people that, you know, don't say you can't do it because of the color of my skin or because of my race or my nationality.
Or the size you are.
No.
Yep.
This is what I tell people. So many people I know have risen against such great odds. And if you feel this inside you, that's what matters.
Yes.
It is what is inside you that will determine where you will end up, not someone else.
Well, thank you, Jackie. We're going to have to cut it. So we appreciate everything you've done in Eufaula. I think you're a celebrity here in Eufaula.
Well,
You're a wonderful lady. I have been to those festivals where your little they weren't little, handmade boats down in Longtown.
You'll have to have me back again, and I'll.
we will.
Because building boats is an art too.
Yes.
Building wooden boats is not building a file cabinet or a table.
Nope.
That is a true art, and that would be a whole subject to talk about.
It would, wouldn't it?
And you know, I started saying if I could I've still got a couple of small ones, but they're too big to get in your gallery here.
No, we can come to your place.
Well, they're in the warehouse right now. I've moved everything to the warehouse.
Oh, okay.
But the ones I didn't give away, I gave away a lot of them to museums and things. And
well, you're much appreciated here in Eufaula. Thank you so much for coming in and letting us talk to you and letting everybody else hear and see you. Thank you so much.
Well, you know, it's been a joy living here.
And you've been here a while too now, so. All right, I'm going to end this by kind of scanning the studio. We have jewelry that Beth Parker has given us. The quilt behind Jackie is by Linda, and it's $25. These are some of the pictures from our exhibits on the wall. We have several. And then we have pottery by Mr. Carter, Bob Carter. There's Beth's fish. We have photos. There's another Beth Parker piece. And we actually have Christmas dishes for sale at a very, very discount price. And this is what it looks like from our inside the studio facing Main Street. All right, bye-bye.